I know many of you are like, wait a minute, did I read that right? Did Majestic just drop a true crime video? Yes, I did. And for those of you who do not understand, on my last channel, I used to do a lot of true crimes, but it also got me into a lot of trouble with YouTube. And so I kind of stopped doing them because it was too much of a hassle to fight them. You know, sometimes they wanted me to take them down because the thumbnail might have had, children in it, or it might have been a child true crime. There was like so many different reasons on why all of my true crime were getting flagged. It was to the point that it just wasn't worth the fight. And then when I did fight, they were able to stay up, but of course they weren't monetized. So it was just, so that's when I decided to do a Patreon. So I will be diving into the story of Franklin Floyd. This was requested. And if you do like my true crime whispers, then think about joining my Patreon. I do a true crime every single Sunday for 1 hour. Sometimes it might be one case, sometimes it might be multiple cases. Sometimes you see my face, sometimes you don't. Sometimes I do it a podcast style, which is actually easier for me because the podcast, the way I record it, does not take up much memory as me using like my phone. So, and I sometimes add in clips and stuff, which right now my iMovie is acting up once again. But anyway, so yes, if you like my true crimes, think about joining my Patreon. The information will be linked down below. But this was requested. And again, it's Franklin Floyd. This documentary is on Netflix, and I think it's under The Girl in the Picture. I'm here to say, since this is not going to be monetized anyway, that this crime, this whole story, is fucked up. It's twisted and fucked up. I don't think any true crimes are happy. Listen, y'all gonna have to deal with that dog. I don't know what else to do about it. I will be moving in less than a month, so hopefully the new apartment will be better. Yes, I did find a new apartment. If you care about that, think about joining my Patreon, but I'll be out of here in 3 weeks. So just bear with the bullshit outside and that bipolar dog upstairs, because I don't know. I don't know. And it's so funny because his owner said, yeah, I think my dog is bipolar. I said, yeah, me and my subscribers also agree. So he just found that hysterical, because the funny thing is, he has listened to some of my videos and he says, is that my dog in the background? I'm like, yup, every single effing time it is. And so anyway, I did watch the documentary on Netflix. And so one thing that I noticed that I'm gonna do, I did hear that this story was done on YouTube by other artists. I have not checked out those videos, because one thing about me, I don't like doing a topic that other people has done and seeing how they did it. I'd like to do it my own way. And one thing I would like to dive into is, how did we get here? struggled to make a living on her own. So she and her children lived with her parents in a small apartment. Over the next year, caring for the large family became too difficult for Floyd's grandparents, and by 1946, they asked Tanya and her children to leave. Floyd and his siblings were put into the care of Georgia Baptist Children's Home in Hatfield at the advance of Lamar County Children's Services. There, Floyd was allegedly bullied by other children for being feminine and later reported to have been sodomized with a broomstick when he was just 6 years old. And see, that's what I'm saying. Like, I watched the Netflix show, and a lot of it did have to do with Tanya, aka Sharon Susan, but we'll get to that. But I kept saying to myself, how did he get here? How did he become the monster? How did he become the man that he was? And this right here is explaining all of it. In his own words, he stated that he was digitally penetrated in his by other boys in the home. He was also subject to harsh punishment by the staff. As a teenager, his hand was dipped into hot water after he was caught masturbating. Floyd often got into trouble for fighting and stealing. Each sibling reached the age of 18. They left home. As each sibling reached the age of 18, they left home. In 1959, having been there 2 years after his youngest sister left, Floyd ran away and broke into a nearby house to steal food. The children's home informed his sister Dorothy, who was now married and living in North Carolina with 2 children, that criminal charges would not be if she took custody of her brother. So it seemed as if all the siblings somehow or another got out. It was just a bad living situation. The mother wasn't able to take care of her children. They tried to move in with the grandparents. It was too much financially. They were put into child services, and little by little, everyone just kind of ran away. You know, it wasn't a good environment for any one of them. So now the youngest, Franklin, is a mess. And now they're saying that, you know, if the sister takes him in, there won't be any criminal charges on him. But after being kicked out of his sister's home, so the sister did take him in, but obviously that didn't work out. Floyd traveled to Indianapolis to search for his mother, Tanya, only to learn that she had become a prostitute. Floyd helped his mother. No, Floyd had his mother help him forge legal documents, allowing him to go into the Army to enlist in California U.S. Army. However, the Army discharged him 6 months into his service after discovering that he was underage and that his papers were falsified. After being unable to find his mother again, Floyd traveled across the country as a drifter. His mother died on July 2nd, 1968, and is buried in Graceland Cemetery in Chicago, Illinois. So right there, that it just explains his childhood, you know. Let's speed this up. At the age of 16, Floyd broke into a Sears department store in Inglewood, California to steal a gun. Police quickly responded to a burglar alarm, resulting in a shootout in which Floyd was shot in the stomach. He survived at the surgery. After recovering, he was sent to a youth institution for a year. In 1961, he was arrested for violating his parole by going on a fishing trip in Canada with a friend that is 16. 2 years later, making him 18, he returned to Hatfield and found a job at Atlanta International Airport the following month. Okay, so now we psychiatric testing. 1963, he is now 19. He escaped and fled to, when he was taken out for medical errand while he was in prison, he actually escaped and fled to Macon, where he robbed over 6,000 from a branch of the Citizens and Southern National Bank. He was convicted of robbery and sentenced to jail. After a second attempt, he was transferred to the United States Penitentiary in Pennsylvania. There, he was continually raped by other inmates, causing him to climb a roof at the prison and threaten to commit suicide at one point. After being sent to the federal penitentiary, Floyd was sent back to the Georgia State Prison in 1968 and befriended a fellow inmate named David Dial. 1972, Floyd was released from prison and sent to a halfway house. On January 27, 1973, a week after he was released from the halfway house, he approached a woman at a gas station and forced her into her car, where he attempted to grope and sexually assault her. The woman managed to escape, and then Floyd was arrested. Floyd convinced Dial, who had been released from prison, to post his bond, allowing him to go on the run as a fugitive. When he failed to show up for court on July 11th, a warrant was issued for his arrest. And so, as of now, he is a fugitive. He didn't appear in court, and now there's a warrant for his arrest. It's not clear, but I don't think Dial wanted anything to do with this bond. It really doesn't say if he broke him out or not. It just said that Floyd convinced Dial, which I guess he did, since it said convinced him, who had also been released from prison, to post his bond. So yeah, Dial did do that. Dial posted his bond, and then Floyd ran because he never showed up for his court date on June 11th, 1973. By 1974, Floyd was now using an alias name under Brandon Williams. While at North Carolina truck stop, he met Sandra Francis Brandenburg. She was a mother of 4 children. This is where we need to listen up, because now we kind of went through, when he was born, his adolescence, teenage years. Now he's a grown-ass man, okay? A grown-ass man. 1974, he met Sandra Francis Brandenburg. She was a mother of 4 children by 2 different fathers. And then they named which child was with what. But she had a Susan, she had a Allison, an Amy, and a Philip. Floyd and Sandra dated for a month and married, and Floyd convinced her to move her family with him to Dallas. Sandra was sentenced to 30 days in jail for passing bad checks in 1975. While she served her time, she left her children in the custody of Floyd. After she was released, she arrived home to find the residence vacated and her husband and children gone. Sandra eventually found her 2 middle daughters, Allison and Amy, in the care of a local church. She never found her oldest child, Susan, or her youngest boy, Philip. Chipman attempted to file kidnap charges, but was told by local authorities that as the stepfather, Floyd had a right to take the children. Now that's some bullshit, because how can you take the children and then don't let the mother know where the children are? There has to be some type of law of that. That's crazy to me. Crazy. and had been privately adopted in North Carolina. Alright, so now we understand somewhat how Floyd got this girl in his possession. The lady he was married to had to go to jail for 30 days, and when she came home, the kids were gone. It's clear he took one. Floyd raised Susan Zavakis as his daughter. That's actually her real name. Remember, Susan Zavakis as his daughter. He had given a number of inconsistent statements regarding how she became in his custody. One such story is that he rescued her when she was abandoned by her biological parents. The earliest known record of Susan after she was kidnapped was her elementary school registration in Oklahoma City in 1975. She was registered under the alias Susan Davis. Authorities suspected that she was born in the late 1960s and kidnapped by Floyd sometime between 1973 and 1975. Sorry, my nephew is here. Susan Zavakis, now living under the name Sharon Marshall, graduated from high school in Forest Park, Georgia in 1986. Floyd was now living as Warren Marshall. Sharon earned a full scholarship to the Georgia Institution of Technology to study aerospace engineering. Now, one thing I did get from the documentary is that she was a very bright girl. Everyone said she had a bright future. She was kind. She really wasn't part of the popular, people, but she was liked. Very smart and very excited to go to Georgia Institution. That's all she spoke about. That's all she actually worked towards. And then once she got into the school, it was then taken away from her. Unfortunately, as she told a friend, she was pregnant and her father, Warren, would not allow her to go to college. She and Warren instead moved to Tampa, Florida after she gave birth to a child in 1988 who was then placed for adoption. Sharon began working as an exotic dancer and married Floyd in 1989 in New Orleans. Before we go into that, I do remember some people from our high school saying that, her father was very strict and everyone knew them as father and daughter. Some of them called him weird. There was a couple of incidents that I will mention a little. Actually, I should mention that now. One of her friends said that okay, this is one encounter. Jenny Fisher was her friend. Jenny Fisher recounted a sleepover at Tanya's house where Tanya displayed her collection of okay, so remember, Susan is Tanya. She had a couple of different aliases. So if you hear me say Susan, Sharon, and Tanya, they're all the same person. So her friend recounted a sleepover at the house where Tanya displayed her collection of suggestive lingerie, which was all given to her by her father. Now the girl found it weird that her father would be buying her daughter all these sexual or sexy lingerie, I should say. When the two girls were changing into their pajamas, Floyd stormed into Tanya's room, which only had a thin curtain for a door, holding a gun and yelling at both Fisher and Tanya. And I looked at Sharon and she just laughed, saying, "Oh, Daddy's just being silly." After the girls finished changing, they were once again confronted by Floyd, who was still holding a gun. He ordered Fisher to lie down on a sleeping bag and put a pillow over her head, which she did. Floyd then proceeded to rape Tanya at gunpoint while Fisher listened only a couple of feet away. We didn't talk after that. He got up and left, and I just saw the news, that they found out that she married him, and that's when all the suspicion was like, but wait a minute, how can she marry her father? And that's when people started calling in. And so let's get back. Okay, and so unfortunately she told her friend that she was pregnant and her father, Warren, would not allow her to go to college. She and Warren instead moved to Tampa, Florida after she gave birth to a child in 1988 who was then placed for adoption. Sharon began working as an exotic dancer and married Floyd in 1989 in New Orleans. By then, the two had begun using aliases Clarence Marcus Hughes and Tanya Dawn Tadlock. It was discovered years later that Sharon had given birth to a daughter who was living in New Orleans, and the daughter was also given up for adoption. Her name is Megan. So it seemed as if she had 3 kids, and she had 2 daughters that were from adoption, and then she had her Michael. By 1989, Floyd and Susan, now going by Tanya Dawn Hughes, were living in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Tanya worked as a dancer at a strip club. A fellow dancer. Okay, I'm sorry. She worked at a strip club. So it seemed as if once she turned 18, that was part of the income, was for her to be working as an exotic dancer. Because no matter when they picked up and left, she always found a job at a dance club or a strip club. A fellow dancer, Karen Parsley, encouraged Tanya to leave the domineering Floyd, only for Tanya to claim that he would kill her and her son if she tried. Floyd had joined the Fraternal Order of Police despite not being a police officer, and had told Tanya that he could use his connections to track her down. However, by April 1990, Tanya had decided to run away with Kevin Brown, a college student she was having a secret relationship with, and to take Michael with her. That month, 3 passerbys found Hughes lying on the side of a highway 100 miles outside of Oklahoma City. She was rushed to the hospital with severe bruises and a large hematoma at the base of her skull. She died. As she was found with groceries scattered around her, police said she had been struck from behind in a hit and run while walking from a convenience store to a nearby motel. When Floyd arrived at the hospital the following day, he claimed he had fallen asleep at the Motel 6 after Hughes had departed to collect the groceries. So the documentary starts off that they find this body that looked like it was a hit and run, and they took her to the hospital and she died. And it's just sad because anyone that can do something like that and leave a body on the side of the road just like they're trash, that shit bothers me. Like, really bothers me. And, you know, although it never was said why he actually killed her, I think it's because he knew that she was seeing someone else. I honestly believe that he thought he was losing grip. I think he believed that if she left, she might tell the secrets. And so I think he sent her out to get groceries, secretly got in his car, and ran her over. And that's so fucked up. Both Floyd and Hughes went by a number of aliases. At the time of her death, the couple was suspected in the 1989 disappearance of 18-year-old Cheryl Ann Camiso, a former co-worker of Hughes who danced at the same strip club. She had disappeared following an angry confrontation with Floyd. Floyd was considered the last suspect in his wife's death as well. So remember, so Cheryl and Tanya were friends. They both were exotic dancers. And it somewhere about oh, here it is. Okay. And so poor Floyd was the only one who saw his wife, Tanya, Susan, whatever you want to call her at this point, or Sharon. And he also was the last person to see her friend Cheryl. Now Cheryl and her both worked at a strip club. She disappeared in 1989, and her remains unsolved until her skeletons were found in 1995. So she disappeared in 1989, and her remains were found in 1995. She was found off of Interstate 275 in Florida. She was listed as a Jane Doe until a year later, when the remains were actually identified. So they found them and then they had to identify them. It was found that she was beaten, and she died from beating and 2 gunshots to her head. Floyd and Susan, aka Sharon, aka Tanya, aka whatever, had been person of interest in the case after co-workers witnessed an altercation between Floyd and Cheryl. Floyd accused Cheryl of reporting, aka Susan, aka Tanya, for misstating her income, which led them to losing their government benefits. So I guess, okay, so when you're trying to get assistance from the government, they ask you for your income, bank statements, all this stuff. He must have falsified some stuff. Or basically he's accusing Cheryl of messing up his government benefits. Now, it says here Floyd accused Cheryl of reporting Susan. Oh, so he thought that Cheryl was like, okay, Susan, aka Tanya, lied. So he thought Cheryl reported them. And that's why they lost their government benefits. The argue occurred outside the club where they both worked as an exotic dancer. A co-worker reported that Floyd punched Cheryl in the face. After that, Floyd and aka Susan, aka Tanya, fled to Oklahoma shortly after Cheryl disappeared, and then the trailer was burned to the ground in what ruled intentional arson. So after the altercation, the girl disappeared, and then whatever trailer they were at was blown to pieces, and by then, the father and daughter duel was out. They left. So, following Susan's death, Floyd put her son Michael into foster care and left the state. Michael's foster parents told authorities the boy had limited muscle control, was nonverbal, and often experienced hysterical behavior when he first arrived at the home, but he was making a remarkable progress. In 1994, they began adoption proceedings. 6 months after Michael was placed in foster care, Floyd was arrested on parole violation. As part of the adoption process, Michael's DNA was compared to Floyd's to establish paternity. It was discovered at the time that Floyd was not Michael's biological father. So when they fled, they put the little boy Michael into foster care. A nice couple was going to adopt him. They were going through the proceedings and everything like that. He wanted Michael. He wanted this little boy. And they were allowing him visitation. They were allowing him to see it. Although Michael didn't like that, he was allowed visitations. Once they realized that Floyd and relatives. So basically what he's saying was, well, he has no biological relatives. I'm the only person that he knows. He should be with me. Why should he be with strangers when he knows me? That was his, In 94, Michael was in first grade in elementary school in Oklahoma. Floyd walked into the school and forced Principal James Davis at gunpoint to take Michael out of the classroom. Floyd then forced Michael and Davis into his pickup truck. Floyd forced David out of the truck into the wooden area, handcuffed him to a tree, and I also remember from the documentary that they handcuffed him to the tree, but they also duct taped his whole body to the tree, and sped off with Michael. The principal survived, and he was rescued. 2 months later, Floyd was arrested. Michael was not with him and has not been seen ever since. Authorities have received conflicting reports as to what happened to Michael. Some witness statements detailed alleged confession by Floyd regarding Michael's death. Floyd reportedly told his sister and others that he drowned the child in a motel bathtub in Georgia shortly after his kidnapping. Another person claimed he saw Floyd bury Michael's body in a cemetery. I'm sorry for the noise. They now want to try to bring in new washing machines. Yeah, they haven't done that shit since I've been here, and now they want to put in new dryers and new washing machines. Like, anyway. Then he told other sources that Michael was still alive and safe, although he refused to disclose where he left him and who was caring for him. Then eventually, Floyd admitted to killing Michael the same day of the kidnapping by shooting him twice in the back of the head. Like, that was so unnecessary because he had a family that actually wanted him and loved him. And in one of the articles I read, anytime Floyd came for visitation, Michael would sit there and call him bad man, or wouldn't talk, and was actually afraid to go with Floyd. That's crazy. The investigation into the kidnapping of Michael Hughes as well. Oh wait. Let's see, hold on. Oh, it says here in 1995 in Kansas, they found a large envelope stuffed between the truck bed and the top of the gas tank of a truck he had recently purchased at an auction. This is Floyd. They found 97 photographs in the envelope, including many photos of a woman who was bound and severely beaten. The police traced the truck to Floyd, who had stolen the truck in Oklahoma in September 94, but had abandoned it in Texas the following month. So if you're gonna abandon your truck, you should make sure you take all your belongings in it. Also, too, I think too on the documentary, they found these pictures underneath the car somewhere. It does say between the truck bed and the top of the gas tank. But anyway, the medical examiner also compared injuries seen in a photograph to the cheekbones of Cheryl Ann's skull and found they were consistent. Many of the pictures contain images of furniture and other belongings identified to belong to Floyd. He was tried and convicted for Cheryl Ann's murder based off the photos they found in the truck. That's crazy. Like, all the shit he's done, the kidnapping, having this girl for years, the principal, all of it. He got busted off of pictures that he left in a car that he abandoned that ended up in an auction that someone else bought. Like, what is the chance as well as the earlier kidnapping of his mother, are ongoing. Other photos found in the truck showed sexual abuse of Susan's ski. So it seemed as if Tanya, Susan, Sharon, authorities found photos of her sexually exploited posted of very ages, starting from the age of 4 to it seemed as if he had sexual pictures of her, pictures of him sexually abusing her. That's why, like, when she was in high school, she found that normal, like, oh, daddy's just playing, because this is what she was used to. You know, this man had her as 4 years old, and everyone knew something was off, even down to like some of the pictures they had, school pictures, just wow. In 2014, in September, he admitted to the murder of Michael and that he had disposed of his body on Interstate 35. A search of the area yielded no results, and police believe that wild hogs may have eaten Michael's body. In 2001, while awaiting the trial for Cheryl, Judge Nancy ruled that Floyd was incompetent to stand trial and ordered him to undergo further mental evaluation. Floyd fought against this assessment, asserting that he was competent. Several months later, the judge reversed his previous ruling and ordered him to stand trial. He was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. So he did a lot of running back and forth, and it's just so sad that this lady was not able to find her daughter Susan. You know, yeah. Then it says here, Tanya's injuries. Karen Parsley, a fellow dancer at the Passion and a close friend of Tanya, said she grew suspicious of Tanya and Clarence's relationship after seeing Tanya's bare body while changing in the strip club locker. She also noted that Tanya had bruises along her entire back, which got worse over time. She said she slipped and fall, but she knew different, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. Parsley was one of the few individuals who visited Tanya at the ICU following her fatal accident. When they found her on the side of the road, there she noticed Tanya had scratch marks across her chest as if someone had tried to claw her. Yeah, this girl who went to go visit her in the ICU before she died, she remembered that the father, aka husband, didn't want no visitors into Susan's room or Tanya's room, but her friend went in anyway, and she kept saying she couldn't believe of the scratch marks she had across her chest. To me, it looked like she's been in a fight. Adding that the nurses also suspected the situation to be foul play and not a hit and run. Her vital signs were stable, but she seemed to have a sinking spell, and then eventually she died. These are also these are 6 Netflix I guess, what do they call it? Girl in the picture, the 6 most horrifying revelations in the Netflix true crime documentary. And then on May 1st, 1990, just one day after Tanya's death, Michael was sent to go live with his new foster parents, Meryl and Ernest Bean. The decision greatly upset Clarence, who fought hard in court to gain custody of Michael. My son is punished for wanting to see his dad, Clarence claimed in an old clip from a court hearing, locked in his room, and his toys are taken away, and he told his dad, and he's told that his dad's a mean man. So basically what they're saying is that seeing his father. When it was time to go visit Clarence, Michael would often hide under the Bean's piano bench and murmur, "That mean man, that mean man, that mean man." So, although he thought people were feeding this information to his son, no, his son was saying he's a mean man. And so, it was assumed by the local township that Clarence was Michael's biological father, but it was proven that he was not. Then his parental rights were soon terminated, which fueled him. And that's when he decided to go to school, kidnap the kid along with the principal and everything else. Joe Fitzpatrick, a special agent with the FBI, found that Clarence tried to collect Tanya's life insurance policy back in 1990 and used a social security number that did not match with his current name. So they got married, right? I assume he took out a life insurance on his wife. I'm pretty sure that it was leading up to this moment, that if he took a life insurance out on her, he was going to kill her, and he would take the insurance and take Michael and raise Michael as its own. Like, that's where I think he was going with this. But he fucked up. He put the wrong social security number. Actually, he put his real name, social security number. And that's when they found out that his real name was Franklin Floyd. And then it said Floyd. Additional names he used was Trenton Davis, Warren Marshall, Princeton Morgan, Kingfish Floyd, and Brandon Cleo Williams. You know what's funny? I'm hearing people outside my window complaining how this apartment complex is full of shit. They can't even get laundry done. They can't get this. They can't get that. But these people are knocking on your door if you one day later, friend. She's just going off on somebody right now. Like, I can't. Like, okay. 3 more weeks, y'all. 3 more weeks, and I'm out of here. Okay, like Floyd, Tanya had several aliases. One of them, she went by Sharon Marshall, which she used to attend her high school. Tanya's childhood friends, 3 of them. Okay, so her childhood friends, like when she was little, known her as Tanya. When she went to high school, she was known as Sharon Marshall. In the documentary's most horrifying moment, it's revealed that the man who acted like Tanya's father was Floyd, and the confusion doesn't end there. It's crazy because in different states they pose as father and daughter, and in other states they were husband and wife. I wonder though, you have to think that they were gonna fuck up one day. I mean, with all these different names, social security numbers, all of it. Like, how do they really expect to really keep up with this stuff? And it says here that they changed their name so they can get married in New Orleans. Later, it's finally revealed that Tanya, whose birth name is Susan Marie Zavoskis, was kidnapped as a young girl by Floyd, raised as his daughter, and later became his wife by force. And in between, he was just fucking her up. And that is so sad. And then we went into Michael's death. He just shot him twice in the back of the head to make it real quick. And that the day they kidnapped Michael is the same day they killed him. Lloyd said that he buried Michael near the Oklahoma-Texas border about 20 years later. it's so sad. It's so sad. It's so sad that I don't know. I don't even know where to begin with this case. Like I don't, because I feel as if although he's in jail for life or whatever, I just feel as if he didn't. I mean, he's on death row, but like, I feel as if he did. There's no justice for Michael. There's no justice for Susan. I mean, yeah, he's on trial for Cheryl's death, but that's just fucked up. He has ruined so many families and lives, and for what? And for like you just couldn't get a woman your age. Like what in the actual fuck? And then it also says here that there was also a lie that they lived with the father after the mother was killed in a car accident. It's also noted that Susan, aka Tanya, would get anxious around her father, who kept her under lock and key at home. I don't know, but let me know down below if you have heard this story and what you think about it, and do you think his background really fucked him up? Let me know down